I actually did a study about this. So for the fact that I'm making this video says for the most part of the whole thing, I know what I'm talking about. And where my knowledge will be limited, I will just share my personal experience for this video to make more sense. So let's get straight into the video. Being alone and lonely. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. And first thing I want to address is being alone and being lonely. There's nothing wrong with those two concepts, right? You shouldn't feel bad because you feel alone or you feel lonely. That's how I'm going to start today's video. And I've actually gotten to the point now where I understood, because I've been very isolated for a very long time. If you go to on my social media platforms, on my Instagram and on my Facebook, a bunch of my recent videos and my a lot of my videos, actually, if you see any picture online on my social media, most of them are is just me, and there's only a few of the pictures where I'm with other different people. But if you go across my social media, you get to find that a lot of my videos are in isolation. It's where I was alone. Now, one interesting thing, like one fascinating thing that I actually got to understand with this whole thing of being alone and lonely, as I was reading about it and doing a research on it, is being alone and being lonely are two different concepts. Though they sound the same and you might think they are the same, that's a common mistake that as people we tend to make. But being alone and being lonely are two different concepts, two different ideas. How? Because being alone, with my own understanding, is it's a state. You are just alone, meaning there are no people around you, there are no people surrounding you. But being lonely is a feeling, and I think oftentimes even a thought, because you can think you are lonely and you can feel are lonely, right? But I think it's more onto the feeling side than the thought, right? So being a person who's been isolated and been alone for a very long time, I can tell you that yes, sure, it's uncomfortable and um, it's very discouraging. Let me say that. It's very discouraging and it's very upsetting sometimes. But I got to understand why it's upsetting and it's why it's not very comfortable, especially the uncomfortable part. So the reason why we tend to feel uncomfortable in isolation and we are uncomfortable feeling alone or being lonely is because we have not gotten into the art of accepting ourselves. So one thing that made it uncomfortable for me to spend majority of my time along the week feeling uncomfortable is because I am not comfortable yet being in my own skin. And I've seen this and I've observed this with many different experiences where sometimes when I'm interacting with people and we get to a point where things start to get awkward and silent, I feel like I have to fill that silence with words. But maybe that's more onto the social side. But I'm going to be talking mostly about myself. So I have felt lonely for a couple of times because I I am constantly in the house. I'm daily in the house. So obviously the thoughts of being lonely will come. But I can say the message that I can give you today is it's not that bad. It's actually not that bad feeling alone. What you need to do is to exercise being yourself, exercise being comfortable and confident in being you, because there's no other you except you. There's no other me except me. So part of making these videos sometimes if I point to the second person and I tell the second person that learn this, do this, half the time or most of the times I am telling myself that message. So when I tell you that you should learn to be comfortable being alone, is actually me telling myself that I should be comfortable being alone. And the interesting part or the positive part of this whole concept of being alone is we are never really alone, right? I think we just feel lonely or we just think we are alone, right? Because you have your parents. If you don't have your parents, you have people you know, right? There's some people you know that you sometimes interact with, and you have your neighbors. And if everything else fails, no neighbors, no friends. Maybe parents are at a distance and you feel like communicating with them over the phone is not enough. You always have God, right? And I know a lot of people might have a lot of controversy when I talk about God as a word, because many different people have different definitions for when we talk about God. When I talk about God, I'm talking about the only God, which is Jesus Christ. That's who I'm referring to. When I talk about a God who loved me so much that he took it upon himself to die for my sins, I'm talking about Jesus Christ. No other God. Right? So if you ever feel alone, that's one thing that I think a lot of motivational speakers tend to miss out and tend to exclude in their motivation and encouragement for people who might feel maybe depressed or isolated, or addressing such topics, is including God in the encouragement. There's no other way except God, right? If you ever feel like you don't have friends, you're too isolated, you're depressed, you're down, He's the only way, right? And this leads me to one other idea that a lot of people tend to misuse, which is depression. And this happens, I think, mostly with the youngins, people my age, people in my Gen Zs, if I should say that could be a collective, is any sudden feeling of unhappiness and feeling down and feeling just not in the zone. We are so quick to declare that as depression. Not every negative emotion and thought is depression. Yeah. Fascinatingly enough, if that's a word, interestingly enough, there are still different words, like, no, not actually words, feelings and emotions. We still have unhappiness, sadness, despair, and feeling a lack of motivation. We still have those negative thoughts. Not all of those thoughts are negative thoughts. They are not depression. Not everything that's like upsetting you or not sitting well with you is depression. So we need to try as much as possible not to perform self-diagnosis and declare ourselves or diagnose ourselves with depression. There are genuine people who are actually depressed. And if you look at your situation, like I look at my situation, I have no reason to be depressed. I go to bed every day having eaten. I have breakfast, I have lunch. I have both parents. I get to go to school. I get to buy whatever I want. I get to make videos. Heck, I get to do whatever I want to be doing. So I have no reason to be depressed. Yes, sure, here and there I can be upset. Maybe I can be angry. I can feel down. That's okay, because sometimes, take for example, sometimes I wake up and I don't even have the motivation to shoot any videos. Or sometimes I wake up and I look at some of my videos and then I feel discouraged. I feel like there's no progress. Maybe that's when the obsession with the statistics comes in play. And then I feel discouraged. But that's okay. That's a normal human emotion. And we need to be comfortable enough to sit with those emotions and not panic and feel like it's a problem that we are feeling lonely. It's a problem that we are feeling discouraged. It's not a problem. It's a normal human emotion. If you enjoyed this video, if you understood the video, that's good. If you found something valuable from this video, that's perfect. If you found something valuable, if you found this video helpful, and now you have a decision and you now have a new goal that you want to start achieving, and you have an idea of some of the things you can do to change your life and to start accepting yourself, that's even amazing. But until then, I'll catch you all in the next session.